The Duke takes a simple woman to his brother's wedding, and the bride kneels and calls her Your Majesty. Before we begin this beautiful period romance story, tell me in the comments where you're listening from. I love knowing where you're joining me from. Louis de Clermont had received many summons in his life, but none unsettled him as deeply as the immaculate envelope resting on his desk that morning. The seal of Château du Verdon gleamed in the light, a reminder of duty, family, and the merciless eyes of society. His younger brother Etienne was to be married within the week, and Louis's presence was not merely expected, it was required. He stood by the window, staring toward the distant fields as if they could offer advice. The countryside remained quiet, unbothered by court gossip, oblivious to the sting of whispered judgments. How he envied it. Jacques, his steward, approached with a hesitant cough. "You will attend, my lord?" Louis exhaled. "I must, but I refuse to walk into that hall alone again. Last season was quite enough." Jacques bowed his head. "The noble families are persistent in their commentary. A charitable way of saying they live to pick apart anything they do not understand," Louis muttered. "If I arrive without a companion, speculation will be unbearable. If I arrive with one, they will still whisper, but at least their imaginations will be occupied elsewhere." The steward hesitated. "Do you have someone in mind, my lord?" "No," Louis admitted, "and that is the trouble." He had no interest in the scheming daughters of ambitious families. They did not want him. They wanted his influence, his wealth, the prestige of the Clermont name. He longed for peace, not entanglement. Yet the summons remained firm. Attendance was not optional. 3 days later, on the way to see a horse breeder in a neighboring village, the Duke's carriage shuddered violently and halted. Louis stepped out to inspect the wheel, cracked clean through. The coachman swore under his breath and began repairs, leaving Louis with nothing to do but wait. A faint argument drifted from the small inn nearby. The voices carried across the yard, a man's tone impatient, a young woman's voice weary but steady. Louis followed the sound almost without thinking. Inside the inn, a grey-haired tavern-keeper crossed his arms as a young woman pleaded with him. "Please, monsieur, just one more week. My brothers will bring the rest of the payment as soon as the harvest settles, I swear it." "If promises paid debts, girl, I would be a wealthy man," he barked. "Your family has had enough delays." "I know," she whispered, "but we will lose the house if—" "That is not my affair." The girl's eyes shone with unshed tears, but her posture remained straight. No desperation in her gestures, no cheap theatrics, only dignity fighting not to crumble. Louis stepped forward almost without realizing it. "Is there trouble?" The innkeeper straightened. "Your Grace, I did not see you come in." Louis inclined his head slightly toward the girl. "Is this young woman in your service?" "No, Your Grace," the girl answered before the keeper could. "I only came to ask for an extension. I thought it worth trying." Her voice was warm, quiet and strikingly calm despite the weight on her shoulders. Louis found himself studying her, brown hair gathered loosely at the back, a plain dress mended carefully, hands marked by work, but her gaze held a clarity that stilled him. "What is your name?" he asked. "Claire Dubois, Your Grace." "And your family is in difficulty?" She swallowed. "Yes, but we will manage. I will find a way." The innkeeper muttered something about hopeless causes and walked off. Claire exhaled slowly, readying herself to leave. Louis stepped into her path, gently, not blocking her, only drawing her attention. "Forgive my intrusion," he said. "I overheard enough to understand you are burdened by something beyond your control." She forced a small smile. "Many families are, Your Grace. Mine is not special." "Your composure is," he murmured, before he could stop himself. She blinked. "I beg your pardon." "Nothing improper," he assured. "Merely an observation." He considered her quietly. Her humility was not an act. She had no idea how striking her sincerity was. She had no training in the artifice and masks of courtly life, and that was precisely why she reminded him of something he had long forgotten. Honesty without agenda. An idea began to form. Outrageous, certainly, but not entirely unreasonable. "Miss Dubois," he began, "I must ask you something unusual." She tensed. "Unusual in what manner?" "I am expected at my brother's wedding in 2 days," he explained. "It will be a grand affair, attended by the entirety of the Lorraine and Clermont circles." She nodded politely, not understanding where this led. I would prefer not to appear alone, Louis continued. It invites far too much attention. I require a companion, someone presentable, sensible, and able to maintain composure. Someone like you. Claire blinked several times. Me, Your Grace? Yes. If you agree to accompany me, I will compensate you enough to settle your family's debts and provide additional security for the months ahead. Her mouth parted slightly, stunned. I have never stepped inside a noble house. I do not know how to behave among titled people. I would embarrass you. I would not make the offer if I believe that, he said softly. I ask only that you remain yourself. That is more than sufficient. She shook her head, overwhelmed. Why choose a stranger? Because strangers do not seek to gain anything beyond what they are promised, he answered, and because you look at the world as though it still contains decency. I cannot recall when I last saw that. Her breath caught, not from flattery but from uncertainty. She twisted her fingers lightly, fighting the instinct to accept, to refuse, to flee. My family, she whispered. The payment would be immediate. Claire lowered her eyes. Then, yes, I will go with you. Louis felt unexpected relief wash over him. Thank you. We leave at dawn. Her agreement was firm, but he could see the quiet fear behind it. She was stepping into a world that devoured the unprepared. The next morning, she arrived at the carriage door with a small bag, hands trembling despite her attempt to hide it. Louis helped her inside, offering a reassuring nod. You need only breathe, he told her. The rest will come naturally. She tried to smile. I will do my best, Your Grace. He settled across from her as the horses began to move. The village disappeared behind them, the road opening toward the life she had never imagined. For several minutes, the ride was quiet. Claire looked out the window, watching fields and farms fade into distant hills. Louis observed her carefully. She sat with modest poise, back straight, eyes alert. She was nervous, certainly, but not fragile. Strength lived beneath her gentleness. You may ask me anything. She looked up. Why are you so certain this will help you at the wedding? Because people fear what they cannot categorize, Louis replied. They will not know who you are. That uncertainty will keep their attention occupied. And you are not worried that I will say something foolish? She asked shyly. If you say something honest, it will be more graceful than any rehearsed speeches the nobles deliver daily. She laughed softly, the first true sound of ease since he met her. The carriage continued its steady rhythm, carrying them closer to a castle Claire had never dreamed she would see. As they approached the village outskirts, a farmer carrying a basket of apples passed the road. He slowed when he spotted Claire through the window. His eyes widened with something between shock and recognition. The basket slipped slightly in his grasp. Louis noticed but thought little of it. Claire, distracted by her thoughts, did not see him at all. The farmer watched the carriage roll away, then turned and ran toward the village with urgent steps, shouting for someone to listen. Someone who knew Claire's name. Someone who had been waiting for a sign. Claire sat inside the carriage, unaware of anything behind them, unaware of the message being carried at that very moment, one that would change the course of everything that awaited her at Château du Verdon. Claire had imagined many things during the long ride, but nothing prepared her for the first glimpse of Château du Verdon. The estate rose behind a curtain of winter mist, broad arches and tall windows reflecting the pale light. It seemed less a residence and more a world of its own, inhabited by people who had never known struggle or worry. Louis leaned slightly toward her. Do not let the building intimidate you. It is made of stone, nothing more. She swallowed. In my village, stone that grand is reserved for churches. Then think of it as another kind of sanctuary, he said, though even he sounded unconvinced. When the carriage stopped at the entrance steps, a line of servants hurried toward them. Claire stiffened, unsure whether to move or wait. Louis stepped out first, then offered his hand. She hesitated only a second before taking it. His grip was steady, warm, quietly supportive. Inside the entrance hall, polished floors reflected the chandeliers overhead. Claire tried not to stare, but everything drew her eyes. Portraits, sconces, a sweeping staircase that looked carved from moonlight itself. Louis noticed her tension. Walk with me, I will handle the introductions. That promise lasted less than a minute. Two noblewomen glided across the hall, silk skirts hissing softly. They stopped before Louis with rehearsed smiles. One inclined her head to him, the other assessed Claire with a glance that sliced like a blade. Your Grace, the first woman murmured. It has been far too long. Lady Vivian, Louis replied politely. A pleasure. She nodded at Claire without a smile. And this is, Louis answered calmly, Miss Claire Dubois. She is accompanying me for the wedding. Lady Vivian's eyebrows rose. Accompanying you? How charming. The tone suggested it was anything but. Claire lowered her eyes, unsure whether she should curtsy or stay still. She did neither, frozen between options. The second woman smiled thinly. How refreshing to see an untrained guest. So many young ladies these days are prepared like soldiers for courtly events. Claire managed a soft reply. I assure you I am not a soldier, my lady. The women exchanged a look, amusement mixed with disdain. Louis stepped forward slightly, a subtle but unmistakable gesture. Ladies, if you will excuse us, Miss Dubois must rest before the evening reception. They offered quick smiles and glided away. Claire released a breath she did not realize she was holding. Louis turned to her. You handled yourself well. I did not speak correctly. You spoke honestly, he replied. That unsettles them more than anything. Servants appeared again, asking questions rapidly. Which chamber for Miss Dubois? Should her belongings be taken upstairs? Should a maid be appointed? And each barely waited for an answer. Claire tried to respond, but the flurry of instructions pulled her in different directions, leaving her confused and embarrassed. Louis noticed. Enough. Take her to the same wing as my rooms. Use the second chamber. The servants bowed and hurried off. Claire followed them, but not without glancing back at Louis. He gave her a reassuring nod. The chamber assigned to her was larger than her entire house. Claire paused at the doorway, stunned. She stepped inside as though entering a sacred place, unwilling to disturb anything. A maid approached her with a respectful curtsy. Miss, if you require help with your dress or hair, I am assigned to you for the duration of your stay. Claire smiled faintly. Thank you. But for now I only need a moment to breathe. The maid nodded and left her alone. Claire sat on the edge of the bed, hands clasped tightly. She tried to steady her thoughts. She was here now. She must not be foolish. She must not trouble Louis. He had taken a risk bringing her. She would not disappoint him. But the memory of the noblewomen lingered. Their eyes had seen through her immediately, as though she were a stain on the floor. She rose, walked to the mirror, and studied herself. Ordinary brown hair, a plain face, a dress that looked painfully simple in such a place. She felt small, not because she lacked worth, but because everything here was designed to remind someone like her of their place. A knock sounded. She straightened quickly. Louis entered, closing the door gently behind him. I wanted to be sure you are all right. I am, she said, though her voice betrayed her. It is simply overwhelming. He stepped closer. I know what they are like. They measure worth by etiquette and lineage. It is a flawed system, but one they cling to fiercely. Claire met his eyes. I will not shame you, Claire, he said, softly but firmly. You are not here to impress them. You are here because I chose to bring you. Her breath caught. Why? Because you are far braver than you think. A soft knock interrupted them. A footman peered in nervously. Your Grace, the royal delegation has arrived. They ask for your presence in the upper hall. Louis nodded. I will come shortly. The footman withdrew. Louis looked back to Claire. This evening will be crowded. Stay near me when we enter the reception. If anyone troubles you, you tell me immediately. She nodded. Thank you. He hesitated, as if wanting to say more, but only offered her a small, reassuring smile before leaving the chamber. Claire exhaled slowly. The castle was vast, but she would navigate it, step by trembling step. When evening fell, the reception hall filled with music and low conversation. Candles glowed in tall holders, and guests arranged themselves in clusters like birds in ornate cages. Claire walked beside Louis, her heart beating too quickly. Eyes followed her, tracking every move. Some guests stared openly, others whispered behind gloved hands. Claire felt each gaze like a drop of cold water down her spine. A butler announced Louis's entrance. Heads turned. Claire stood straight, praying her voice would not tremble if someone spoke to her. Louis leaned in slightly. You are doing well. Before she could reply, a group of noblemen intercepted them. Your Grace, one said with a practiced bow, we heard you brought a companion, quite the surprise. Louis's tone cooled. Is surprise a crime now? Not a crime, the noble replied with a thin smile, but it invites curiosity. His gaze shifted to Claire. Miss Dubois, was it? Where did you receive your training? Claire answered truthfully. I did not receive any training, my lord. Indeed, he said, lifting a brow. A bold choice, your grace. Louis's jaw tightened. Claire felt instinctively that she should say little. Louis steered her away before the conversation could deepen, but the murmurs continued behind them. A villager? Impossible. He must be desperate. Claire clenched her hands. Louis touched her elbow softly. Do not listen. I am trying, she whispered. A sudden hush fell over the hall. Claire felt the shift before seeing its cause. A new group had entered, elegantly dressed, marked by quiet authority. The royal family, Louis murmured. Claire's gaze travelled among them, lingering on the young woman at the centre. Princess Amélie, the bride. She was beautiful, poised, radiant, and staring directly at Claire, not with curiosity, not with disdain, with recognition. Claire looked away quickly, unsure why her stomach twisted. Louis escorted her toward a corner where they could breathe, but the princess's gaze followed her, unwavering. Why is she looking at me? Claire whispered. Louis's expression darkened a fraction. I do not know. Claire wished she could disappear. Every instinct told her she should avoid attention, not draw it. But attention clung to her now, unwilling to let go. A servant carrying wine passed by them too quickly, nearly colliding with Claire. Louis steadied her, but in the moment she regained her balance, she caught sight of the princess again. Amélie had stopped walking. Her ladies whispered around her, confused by her sudden stillness. The princess's eyes remained fixed on Claire, filled with something shockingly close to fear. Claire's breath halted. Louis followed her gaze, his expression tightening. And then it happened, a single motion that froze the entire hall. Princess Amélie took one slow step toward Claire, as if confirming something she did not dare believe. Then another. Every murmured conversation died. Every violin string fell silent. Claire felt her knees weaken under the weight of the princess's gaze. Princess Amélie stood rooted in place, looking at Claire as though seeing someone the world had sworn lost forever. The next morning began with a restless air, as though the castle itself had sensed the shift that had rippled through the reception hall. Servants moved faster than usual, glancing at Claire with a mixture of curiosity and uncertainty. Some nodded respectfully, others stepped aside as if fearing to brush against her. She tried to ignore it. She tried to walk as Louis had told her, steady, composed, but her heart had not settled since the moment Princess Amélie had stared at her as if beholding a lost memory. Louis found her near the staircase, her hands folded tightly. You slept poorly, he said. So did you, I imagine. He gave a small nod. People noticed her reaction. They will talk. You must be ready. Claire sighed. I do not even know what I must be ready for. For unkindness, he said simply. The nobles resent anything unexpected, and nothing last night was expected. He offered his arm. Come. The morning reception is beginning. I will not leave your side. Claire hesitated before taking his arm. You should, if you wish to avoid trouble. I invited trouble the moment I brought you, he said gently. Do not make me regret it. Her cheeks warmed, not from embarrassment, but from the strange comfort of his words. They entered the reception hall again, a different room this time, smaller, filled with long tables, steaming tea and pastries too delicate to touch. The nobles gathered in tight circles, their voices low, their glances sharp. Claire felt each gaze like a brush of cold wind, but she lifted her chin, reminding herself she belonged at Louis's side, at least for today. A group of young gentlemen approached, too quickly to avoid. One bowed to Louis, then let his eyes drift toward Claire. Your Grace, you caused quite the stir last night. Louis's tone was cool. Did I? Indeed. Some of us were wagering theories before dawn. A foreign countess in disguise, a secret envoy, an actress hired to create scandal. I see your creativity has not failed you, Louis replied. Claire tried to remain still, but the young man stepped closer. Miss Dubois, is it true you studied abroad? You carry yourself as if you might have spent time in Vienna. Claire blinked. I have never left my village, my lord. The young man's smile faltered for a fraction. Ah, a local gem then. Louis cut in sharply. Your curiosity is noted. That will be all. The young men withdrew reluctantly. One whispered to another, loud enough for Claire to hear, "He is hiding something, mark me." Louis exhaled with irritation. They will not rest today. A pair of older women approached next, their gowns rustling like irritated birds. "Your Grace," one said with a stiff bow, "your companion is quite the subject of conversation." Louis replied dryly, "She is not a creature in a menagerie, Lady Rousseau." "I meant no offense," she said quickly, though her eyes said otherwise. "It is simply rare to meet someone of unrecorded lineage." Claire forced a polite smile. "There is not much to record, my lady." Lady Rousseau examined her closely. "Oh, I believe there is. One does not attract the attention of a princess without reason." Her companion, Lady Morel, stepped closer. "My dear, where were you educated?" Claire swallowed. "I was not." Morel raised a brow. "You can read, at least." "Yes." "How quaint," Morel murmured. "And arithmetic?" "Enough to keep accounts." Morel gave a light laugh. "Then we must praise you for your talent. Some young ladies would faint at the idea of appearing here with such limited refinement." Louis's jaw tightened. Enough, but Morel was not done. She leaned in as though offering a secret. "My dear, do not be misled. They will never accept you. They tolerate you because you stand at his side. But when he steps away," Claire felt the words sink into her chest like small stones. Morel smiled coldly. "You will be alone." Louis stepped forward, but Claire shook her head softly, as if asking him not to escalate matters. He stopped, though his eyes darkened. Morel dipped into a shallow curtsy. "Welcome to Château du Verdon, Miss Dubois." Her companion followed, and the two swept away, leaving a trail of whispers in their wake. Claire's voice trembled slightly. "Is it always like this?" "Usually worse," Louis said. "You are handling it with remarkable grace." "I do not feel graceful." "That is how I know you are." She gave a small, unsteady smile, but her stomach twisted. If the morning had only begun, she dreaded what would follow. More nobles approached. Some attempted politeness, others made thinly veiled remarks about her dress, her accent, her unknown origins. Each time Louis intervened, redirecting conversations, shielding her subtly, but the constant scrutiny exhausted her. Eventually, Louis guided her to a quieter corner near the window. "Sit a moment," he said. "Rest." Claire did, grateful for the reprieve. She watched the nobles whisper among themselves, their faces turning toward her again and again. The room felt smaller each minute. Louis stood beside her, arms crossed. "I am sorry," he said suddenly. "For what?" "For their behavior, for bringing you into this. You did not cause them to act this way." "I did, by presenting them with something they cannot categorize." She looked up at him. "If I placed you in a village fair among farmers and traders, you would feel just as misplaced as I do now." He considered her words. "Perhaps. No, perhaps," she insisted gently. "This is simply not my world. But I will endure it. For my family's sake." Louis's voice softened. "You should not have to endure anything." Before Claire could answer, another figure approached. Lady Morel again, but this time alone, her expression smooth, her intent unmistakably sharp. Louis stepped slightly in front of Claire, protective instinct rising. "What do you want, Morel?" "A private word," she said sweetly. "With Miss Dubois, if you please." "No." Claire touched Louis's sleeve lightly. "It is all right. I will speak with her." She may only wish to correct her earlier tone. Louis did not believe that for a moment. "If she says one thing out of place—" "I will manage," Claire said softly. Reluctantly, Louis moved aside but remained close, watching with narrowed eyes. Morel sat beside Claire, folding her hands with theatrical elegance. "My dear, you must forgive me for earlier. I simply wished to prepare you. These halls can be cruel," Claire answered cautiously. "I understand." Morel's smile grew colder. "But you must also understand something else. The princess will not let this matter rest." Claire froze. "What matter?" "Her reaction to you last night," Morel said. "Everyone saw it. A princess does not stop in the middle of her own entrance procession unless something truly significant has occurred." "I cannot explain her reaction," Claire whispered. "No," Morel said slowly. "But the princess can." She leaned in. "And I assure you, she intends to." Claire felt her pulse quicken. Why would she speak about me? Morel's smile sharpened. Ask her. She has spent the morning inquiring about you, questioning her attendance, reviewing old documents. Claire inhaled sharply. Documents? Oh yes. Records perhaps. Histories. Something about you has disturbed her deeply. Claire shook her head. I have nothing to hide. I hope that is true, Morel said smoothly. For your sake. And for his. Louis stepped forward immediately. That is enough. Morel rose gracefully. Of course, Your Grace, only conversation. Claire stood as well, but her knees trembled slightly. Louis touched her arm. Do not let her frighten you, he murmured. I am not frightened, Claire whispered. Only confused. Then hold on to that, Louis said. Confusion can be solved. Fear twists everything. Before Claire could answer, a sudden hush fell over the room. Heads turned. The sound of soft footsteps echoed against the floor. Princess Amélie had entered the hall, and she was walking straight toward Claire. Claire could hear her own heartbeat as Princess Amélie approached with measured steps. Every murmur in the hall died. Fans stilled mid-air. Even the musicians hesitated, bows hovering above strings. The princess did not look left or right. Her eyes were fixed solely on Claire. Louis subtly moved closer, positioning himself at Claire's side. His posture was calm, but tension coiled beneath it. Do not be alarmed, he whispered. That is rather difficult, Claire breathed. Princess Amélie stopped only a few steps away. Her face was poised, but her eyes told another story. Confusion, disbelief, and something that looked strangely like sorrow. Miss Dubois, the princess said, her voice soft but steady. Might I speak with you privately? The nobles around them exchanged scandalized glances. A princess asking a villager for a private conversation was unheard of. Louis answered before Claire could. Your Highness, he said with a respectful bow. With all due courtesy, may I ask the purpose of this request? Princess Amélie's gaze lingered on Claire a moment longer before she answered. It concerns a matter the council once considered closed. Louis frowned. A council matter involving Miss Dubois? Yes, Amélie replied calmly. Or so it seems. Claire's breath caught. I do not understand, Your Highness. You will, the princess said, but only if you come with me. Louis stepped forward. If you intend to question her, I insist on being present. The princess shook her head gently. No, Your Grace, this conversation must begin with her alone. Louis opened his mouth to protest, but Claire touched his sleeve. Let me go, she whispered. If I refuse, it will only make them speak more. He held her gaze for a long, heavy second, searching for certainty. If she says anything harsh, I will be all right, Claire said, though she wasn't sure she believed it. Princess Amélie turned, expecting Claire to follow. Claire inhaled deeply, then walked behind her, feeling every eye track their movement as they left the hall. The princess led her through a quiet corridor and into a small, richly furnished salon. Once the door closed, the silence pressed in. Amélie turned to her, eyes sharp with an intensity Claire could not decipher. Sit, Miss Dubois. Claire obeyed, smoothing her skirt nervously. Your Highness, if I have done something to offend you— You have not offended me, Amélie interrupted. You have shocked me, and perhaps frightened me. Claire blinked. Frightened you? The princess walked slowly to a cabinet and retrieved a small box. She set it on the table between them. Before I show you what is inside, I must ask you a few questions. Answer honestly. It is most urgent. All right, Claire whispered. What is your full name? Claire Dubois. Your mother's name? Marie Dubois. And your father? Claire hesitated. I never knew him. My mother said he died before I was born. Amélie's expression tightened. Do you know anything more of him? His family? His station? No, Claire said. My mother never spoke of him. She avoided the subject. The princess drew a slow breath, steadying herself. What of your birth? Were you born in the same village where you were raised? So far as I know, yes, Claire answered. No one ever said otherwise. Were there midwives who recalled the day? Claire shook her head. My mother said I arrived too quickly. No one reached the house in time. Amélie pressed her fingertips to her temples as though a headache had seized her. This cannot be coincidence. Claire felt her pulse quicken. Your Highness, Why are you asking me these things?" Instead of answering, the princess opened the small box. Inside lay a delicate silver brooch, shaped like a lily with tiny blue stones set at its center. Something about it stirred a faint ache inside Claire's chest, though she had never seen it before. "When I was a child," Amélie said softly, "this brooch belonged to someone very dear to my family, someone whose fate was tragic." She touched the brooch with careful fingers. "It bears the mark of the House of Lorraine. Only daughters born of royal blood ever received one." Claire froze. "Your Highness, I am not—" "Let me finish," Amélie said. 20 years ago, a fire destroyed a small estate belonging to a distant branch of the family. Among the casualties listed was an infant girl, the heir to that branch, the last of their line." Claire swallowed. "I do not see how this concerns me." Amélie's eyes fixed on her with unsettling certainty. The child's name was Claire. Claire's breath left her all at once. "There must be hundreds with that name." "Not with the same birthday," Amélie whispered. "Not born in secret, not vanished without trace." Claire shook her head quickly. "This is impossible. I am not from nobility. I never belonged to anything like that." The princess leaned closer. "Then why did you look exactly like her mother? Why does this brooch match the one she was said to wear at the time of her death? Why did I feel a chill the moment I saw you?" Claire trembled, unable to process the words. "This cannot be true. I am no one, Your Highness. No one." Amélie closed the box gently. "Something about you demands answers. I cannot ignore it, and I will not allow the council to ignore it either." "The council?" Claire whispered. "Why would they be involved?" "Because if what I suspect is true," the princess said softly, "then you are not simply a guest at this wedding. You are someone who should have been protected from the moment you were born." Claire pressed a hand to her forehead, overwhelmed. "Your Highness, even if there is resemblance or coincidence, I have lived 20 years without any sign, because those who hid you wanted it that way," Amélie said, "for your safety, and perhaps for other reasons." Claire looked up sharply. "What reasons?" The princess exhaled. "Power, inheritance, politics, secrets better left buried." Claire felt cold. "I do not want to disturb anything. I do not want to take anything. My life is my own." "But your existence alone could shift the balance of several family lines," Amélie replied, "which is why certain people would prefer you remain silent." "Silent?" Claire repeated, breathless. The princess stood. "I will not remain silent. Tomorrow, during the ceremony, I intend to speak the truth before all. It must be brought into the open." Claire stood quickly. "Your Highness, no." "This is not a request," Amélie said firmly. "It is a duty." Claire shook her head, panic rising in her throat. "You do not even know if it is true." Amélie held her gaze. "If I am wrong, the council will correct me. If I am right, you must be acknowledged." "I cannot be acknowledged," Claire cried. "I am just a village girl. My family needs me. Not a title, not danger, not any of this." The princess's voice softened. "You do not yet understand who you might be. Tomorrow you will." "Please," Claire whispered, "do not do this." Amélie hesitated, then answered quietly, "I must." Before Claire could plead again, a knock sounded sharply at the door. "Your Highness," a guard called, "the council seeks your presence. Immediately." Amélie straightened, casting Claire one last regretful look. "This conversation is not finished," she said. She turned toward the door. Claire's voice barely escaped her throat. "What will you do?" The princess paused. "What must be done?" The guard opened the door and Amélie stepped into the corridor. Claire remained frozen, her chest tight, her thoughts spinning too fast to grasp. And as the door clicked shut, Amélie's final words repeated in Claire's mind like a slow toll of warning. "Tomorrow, she intends to reveal my identity before everyone." Claire returned to her chamber with unsteady steps. The corridor felt longer than before, as if the castle were stretching around her, swallowing every certainty she had ever held. The princess's words echoed again and again, louder with each repetition. Louis was already waiting inside her chamber. The moment she entered, he crossed the room in 3 long strides. "Claire, what happened? You were gone too long. I nearly went after you myself." She tried to answer, but her throat tightened. Louis guided her to the nearest chair. "Sit. Breathe." I spoke with Princess Amélie," she managed. His jaw tensed. "What did she say?" Claire wrung her hands. She asked questions about my birth, my parents, my mother. What questions? His tone sharpened, as if she believes I am someone else, someone from her family. Louis stared at her, stunned. Her family? That is impossible. That is what I told her, Claire whispered. But she has this brooch. She says it belonged to a child who died in a fire, a child named Claire. Louis released a harsh breath. Coincidence, nothing more. She does not think so, Claire said. He paced the room, his steps tight and controlled. The princess has always been prone to dramatics. She sees patterns in shadows. She said she intends to reveal everything during the ceremony. Louis stopped mid-step. No, she will, Claire whispered. He turned slowly toward her. You must be mistaken. I wish I were. Louis's voice lowered. Heavy with anger, he fought to keep contained. Does she understand what chaos that would unleash? The council would dissect every moment of your life. They would pull apart your past, your family. You would become a spectacle. I do not want any of it, Claire breathed. Louis knelt before her, lifting her chin carefully. Then look at me. Did she threaten you? No. She believes she is protecting me. He muttered something under his breath. She is about to destroy you in the name of protection. Claire shook her head. She said it was duty, that some truth must be spoken. Louis rose again, pacing faster. This is madness. The council will never allow her to make such a declaration without evidence, and if she tries, they will silence her nor silence you. Claire's breath hitched. Silence me? I mean politically, he said quickly. Not harm, but they will control the narrative, twist things. They cannot permit confusion around family lines, not at a royal wedding. Claire pressed her hand to her chest. What do I do? Louis stopped pacing. His expression softened. Not with anger now, but something gentler. You trust me, he said. And you tell me everything that happened, every word she spoke. So she did. She told him about the brooch, about her mother's silence, about the princess's certainty. She recounted every question asked, every tremble in the princess's voice. When she finished, Louis leaned against the wall, rubbing his forehead. There are old whispers, he murmured, stories of a lost child, but no one believed them. It was dismissed as gossip. Claire looked up quickly. You knew of this? I heard rumors, he admitted, but you must understand. I never connected them to you. Why would I? You have no title, no guardian, no record. Nothing about you suggested. Nothing about me suggests nobility because I am not noble, Claire said firmly. I cannot be. Louis came to her again, crouching at eye level. Claire, listen to me. Whatever the princess believes, nothing changes who you are. You endured hardship. You worked. You cared for your family. Nothing that happens tomorrow, nothing Amélie says, can rewrite your character. Claire felt her throat tighten. But the entire castle will judge me. They already judge you, Louis said softly. Yet, you remain standing. She let out a thin breath. What if there is truth to it? What if I am connected to this family? Louis hesitated. Then it is their duty to handle it with care, and mine to protect you from their mistakes. Claire's gaze lifted to his. Protect me? Yes, he said simply. A soft knock interrupted them. A servant stepped inside with a bow. Your Grace, Miss Dubois, there is a matter requiring your attention in the main hall. Louis's expression hardened. What matter? The servant swallowed. It concerns Miss Dubois, and a letter that has been discovered. Claire's blood ran cold. Another letter? The servant nodded. Delivered anonymously. But the council has seen it. Louis's tone sharpened. Let me see it. Now, I am not permitted, Your Grace. They ordered only that Miss Dubois be present immediately. Louis turned to Claire, his voice steady. I am going with you. The servant hesitated. Your Grace, the council requested her alone. Claire felt her stomach twist. Alone, again. She shook her head. I will not go without him. The servant bowed lower. I understand, miss. But they insisted. Louis stepped forward, his voice low. If you think I will allow her to walk into a council chamber unattended, you are gravely mistaken. Your Grace, no, Louis snapped. Inform the council I will accompany her. The servant wordlessly backed away. Claire rose, though her knees shook. Louis, I do not wish to cause conflict. You did not cause anything, he said. This is their doing. Claire hesitated only a heartbeat before accepting his offered arm. His closeness steadied her. Together they stepped into the corridor, but as they approached the main hall, whispers reached them. Whispers that made Claire stop. Nobles murmured to one another, glancing at her with new suspicion. One voice floated clearly above the others. They say the letter claims she was not born where she believes. Another whispered, someone knows who she is, and they intend to expose her before the ceremony. Claire's breath faltered. Louis tightened his grip on her arm, anger flashing in his eyes. They turned a corner, stepping toward the chamber doors, and just before they entered, another voice reached them, sharp, triumphant, unmistakably that of Lady Morel. She will not leave this castle unknown, not after what we learned this morning. The council chamber sat at the end of a long stone corridor, lit by torches that flickered even without wind. Claire walked beside Louis in silence, trying to quiet the trembling inside her chest. She did not know what the letter contained, nor who had written it, but she could feel the castle holding its breath, listening, waiting for her next misstep. Louis kept his voice low as they approached the doors. When we enter, stand close to me. Do not answer anything unless I tell you to. They enjoy turning questions into traps, Claire whispered. I will do as you say. 2 guards pushed open the heavy doors. Inside, several members of the council stood near a long table. Some faces she recognized from the reception, others she did not. Most wore expressions she could no longer mistake, suspicion wrapped in politeness. At the far end of the table sat the royal advisor, Monsieur Renaud, a man known for his cold precision. He looked up as Claire entered, his gaze unreadable. Louis spoke before anyone else could. You summoned us regarding a letter. Renaud lifted a folded sheet of paper delicately between 2 fingers. We summoned Miss Dubois, but you are welcome to observe, Your Grace. Louis stepped forward. I will do more than observe. Renaud's mouth curved faintly, but not into a smile. Very well. Miss Dubois, please stand forward. Claire glanced at Louis. He gave a small nod. Permission, but also warning. She stepped closer. Renaud unfolded the letter slowly. This was delivered anonymously this morning. It contains claims about your birth. Claire swallowed. Claims. Indeed, Renaud said. It states that you were not born in the village you claim, that you were, in fact, abandoned there after a fire destroyed the estate of a noble family. Louis muttered under his breath, the same story the princess hinted at. Renaud continued, his voice cold and steady. It further states that the woman who raised you was not your mother, but a caretaker asked to hide you, and that certain individuals intended to ensure you never returned to the circles of nobility. Claire felt her legs weaken. That is false. My mother, Renaud cut in, is deceased, Miss Dubois. She cannot confirm anything. Louis stepped forward sharply. Advisor Renaud, this letter is baseless. Anonymous accusations have no place in council matters. Renaud raised a slow eyebrow. Yet the princess herself raised identical concerns less than an hour later. That cannot be coincidence. Claire stared at him, breath shallow. Your Highness's sister. She only asked questions. She did not accuse me of anything. Renaud tilted his head. Is that so? Claire nodded, her voice quivering. She believes she recognizes something in me, but that is all. Renaud paced a few steps, hands folded behind his back. You must understand, Miss Dubois, your presence has already caused disruption. The nobles are uneasy. Questions multiply, and with a royal wedding only hours away, anything that threatens stability must be examined. Louis spoke sharply. Are you implying she is a threat? Renaud turned to him calmly. I am stating that uncertain lineage is a danger, especially when it intersects with royal blood. Claire took a small step back. I want no title, no claim, nothing that belongs to anyone else. Renaud's gaze hardened. Intentions matter less than impact. Louis placed a hand on Claire's shoulder. This interrogation ends now. She has answered nothing wrong. She has lied about nothing. Renaud lifted the letter again. Then she will not mind clarifying a few details. Claire braced herself. On which date were you born? He asked. February 19th, Claire whispered. Year? 1834. Renaud exchanged a look with 2 council members. Claire couldn't read it. And where were you born? In the village of Saint-Ciel, or so my mother always said. Renaud tapped the letter. This claims otherwise. I cannot help what a stranger writes, Claire said, her voice trembling. Renaud moved closer. Miss Dubois, do you possess any item from your infancy? A charm? A brooch? A document? No, she said. Only my mother's wedding ribbon. Nothing else. And your resemblance to the late Lady Eveline of Lorraine? Claire blinked. I did not know her. Renaud's eyes narrowed. But the princess insists you favor her strikingly. Claire shook her head again. I cannot explain that. The advisor studied her for a long, uncomfortable moment. Then he asked the question that chilled her blood. Miss Dubois, do you deny being the lost heir of the Lorraine branch? A sharp silence fell across the room. Claire's voice caught in her throat. I do not know who that is. I cannot deny or accept something I never heard of until yesterday. The council members leaned forward, murmuring among themselves. Louis stepped in front of Claire, blocking their stares. This ends here. She has no obligation to entertain these fantasies. If the princess has concerns, let her present them properly instead of dragging Miss Dubois into rumor. Renaud's tone cooled further. The princess intends to speak publicly during the ceremony. Louis stiffened. She cannot. She believes she can. Claire whispered. Advisor Renaud, what will happen to me if she does? Renaud paused. That depends on what truth emerges. Louis tensed. Mind your words. Renaud chose not to look at him. His attention remained on Claire. For now, Miss Dubois, you will remain within the castle grounds. Do not leave without permission. Claire stared. Am I detained? Not detained. Renaud smiled, but it held no warmth. Observed. Louis stepped forward. You have no authority to confine her. For her safety, Renaud said calmly. And for the stability of the wedding, it is necessary. Claire grasped Louis's sleeve. Please, take me from here. He placed his arm around her, guiding her toward the door. Renaud spoke one last time. And Claire, should any other memory come to you, any detail of your early years, I advise you to share it. Secrets have a way of surfacing at the worst possible moment. Louis didn't let Claire respond. He pushed the door open and led her out of the chamber. Once they were in the corridor, he held her face between his hands. Do not listen to them. You have done nothing wrong. Claire's voice trembled. What if there is truth? What if I was abandoned? What if— No, he said firmly. Your worth does not depend on their stories. She tried to breathe. Louis, what do I do? You stay by me, he said. I will take you back to your chambers. But Claire shook her head, shaking with fear. No, if I go back alone, I will not rest. I cannot sit there waiting for tomorrow like prey. Louis exhaled. Then we will walk, somewhere quiet. You need air. They walked down to the east garden, where the corridors opened onto a small terrace overlooking bare winter trees. Claire stepped out first, letting the cold air steady her. Louis stood behind her. Tell me what frightens you most. That they will decide who I am, she whispered. Without letting me decide anything myself, he nodded slowly. I understand that far more than you know. She turned slightly. Louis, but just as she spoke, footsteps echoed from behind them. Two figures approached from the shadows of the corridor, one of the royal guards, and behind him, Princess Amélie. The guard bowed stiffly. Your Grace, Miss Dubois, the princess requests your presence. Louis's voice hardened. This is not the time. The guard hesitated. I fear it cannot wait. Princess Amélie stepped forward, her face pale, her expression shaken. Claire, she said softly, the council is preparing a formal inquiry. They want you presented before the nobles tonight. Claire's heart dropped. Tonight? Amélie nodded. Before the wedding. They want to determine your legitimacy before I make my declaration. Louis stepped in front of Claire. Absolutely not. She will not stand before a room of vultures. It is not optional, Amélie said, her voice trembling. They have summoned the king, Claire gasped. Louis went still. Amélie clasped her hands tightly. There is nothing I can do to stop it. The king wishes to see you himself. The castle moved with a strange hush that evening, as if the very walls anticipated something they could not name. Claire walked beside Louis through the corridors, her steps uneven despite his steadying presence. He had refused to let her face the inquiry alone, and though the council protested, he did not bend. For now at least, she was allowed to walk at his side. They reached the antechamber near the chapel hall where the wedding ceremony would soon take place. The king had not arrived yet, but dozens of nobles lined the space, whispering in restless clusters. Claire felt their stares before she saw them. Every pair of eyes seemed to mark her, measure her, claim her as the center of a story she had never agreed to live. Louis leaned close. Ignore them. Think only of breathing. She nodded, though her breath came shallow. I do not understand why I must be here. They want to intimidate you, he said. It is an old game. Do not let them win. A soft rustle of skirts approached, and Claire turned to see Princess Amélie entering the antechamber, followed by two ladies in waiting. Her posture was firm, but her face betrayed tension. She walked straight to Claire without greeting anyone else. Claire, the princess said softly, I am sorry. I did not expect the council to move so quickly, Louis answered sharply. That is because your words gave them cause. Amélie faced him with a mix of defiance and regret. I never intended harm, but Claire deserves to know the truth, whatever it may be. Claire shook her head. All I ever wanted was to help my family, that is all. The princess's expression softened with ache. I know. And you have been thrust into something greater than you wished. But you must trust that this will lead to clarity. Louis stepped between them slightly. Claire, stand with me. Whatever the king asks, I will answer if you cannot. Claire whispered, Thank you. A nobleman entered the chamber suddenly and announced in a raised voice, His Majesty is approaching. All conversation fell silent. Nobles lined up quickly, straightening their posture and smoothing their clothes. Claire's pulse quickened as the king entered the room, an older man with tired eyes and a stoic expression. He carried authority without effort, as if it clung to him naturally. He scanned the room briefly before his gaze landed on Claire. You are the young woman in question, he said. Claire curtsied quickly, her hands shaking. Yes, Your Majesty. He approached her slowly, studying her with unsettling thoroughness. I have heard conflicting reports concerning you. Some say you are a simple villager. Others say you may be the lost child of a noble branch long thought extinguished. Claire's voice barely rose. I do not know anything of that, Your Majesty. Louis bowed respectfully. Sire, she has no desire for titles or inheritance. She is here only at my request. The king barely acknowledged him. Instead, he turned to the princess. Amélie, you are the one who first raised this matter. She bowed her head. Yes, father. And you do so with certainty? I do so with instinct, she admitted, and with concern. The king sighed deeply. Instinct is insufficient in matters of lineage. I prefer facts. Renaud stepped forward with the anonymous letter in hand. Your Majesty, if I may. No, the king said sharply. Anonymous letters hold no weight. I will not let rumor direct my judgment. Louis exhaled slowly, relief flickering across his face. Claire felt a small measure of tension release in her chest. But the king was not finished. He gestured toward Claire. Still, the princess claims you resemble Lady Eveline of Lorraine, and I cannot deny that at first glance there is some similarity. Claire's breath caught. Amélie stepped beside her. Father, before you judge, allow me to speak to the assembly. The king's brow furrowed. This is your wedding eve, Amélie. Do not derail it with dramatics. I am not being dramatic, she insisted. If this young woman truly bears connection to our family, the truth must come out before vows are exchanged. Louis stepped forward. Your Majesty, please. Princess Amélie's certainty is born of sentiment, not fact. Claire has suffered enough. She deserves peace, not spectacle. Several nobles murmured their agreement. Others whispered eagerly, hoping for scandal. The king rubbed his temples, overwhelmed. This matter should be postponed. Let the wedding proceed. No, Amélie said quietly. Her voice carried through the antechamber like a rung bell. It silenced every murmur. The king turned sharply. Amélie. She stepped toward Claire, her eyes full of something fierce, not anger, but conviction. If I allow this ceremony to proceed without addressing the truth, I will be committing a lie before God and the nobility, she said. I cannot do that. Louis inhaled sharply. Princess. But she ignored him. She dropped to her knees. The sound of her gown hitting the stone floor echoed through the chamber. No one moved, no one breathed. Claire stared in horror. "Your Highness, please, stand." But the princess bowed her head. "Forgive me, Claire, but I know who you are, or who you should have been." Whispers exploded around them, panic and disbelief rising like a storm. Louis moved quickly. "Princess Amélie, get up at once," the king shouted. "Amélie, have you lost your senses?" But the princess remained kneeling. She looked up at Claire, eyes bright with certainty, and something close to reverence. "Your Majesty," she whispered. Claire gasped, stumbling backward as though struck. The nobles erupted. Shouts, gasps, cries of outrage, confusion, disbelief. Louis reached for Claire instinctively, pulling her behind him as chaos surged through the chamber. "Enough!" he bellowed, trying to restore order, but no one heard him. The king rose to his full height. "Amélie, I command you to stand." Princess Amélie lifted her chin. "I kneel before the rightful descendant of our bloodline." The room fell into stunned silence. Claire felt her breath collapse entirely, and then the door to the antechamber burst open. A high-ranking royal advisor rushed in, pale and breathless. "Sire," he called, "there is an urgent development, one that changes everything regarding the girl's identity." The advisor's words struck the chamber like a bolt of lightning. Every whisper died mid-breath. Even the king, who had been moments away from reprimanding his daughter, straightened sharply. Louis's grip on Claire tightened. "What development?" he demanded. The advisor bowed quickly. "Your Majesty, a document has surfaced, one believed lost for 2 decades. The archivists were preparing materials for the wedding procession when they discovered it sealed inside an old registry drawer." The king's expression darkened. "What document?" The advisor lifted a leather folio he carried under his arm. "A birth record, sire, one that concerns the lost Lorraine child." A ripple of shock swept through the nobles. Claire felt her knees weaken. Louis steadied her at once, murmuring under his breath, "Do not be afraid." But even he sounded shaken. Renaud, the council's advisor, stepped forward. "Let me see it." "No," said the king. "Bring it to me." The advisor obeyed, handing the folio to the king, who opened it with slow, deliberate movements. His eyes scanned the worn pages. Silence stretched unbearably. Finally, he spoke. "This is an official decree, signed by my late cousin and witnessed by the royal physician." Amélie, still kneeling, looked up with trembling anticipation. Louis placed himself slightly in front of Claire again, as if shielding her from whatever truth might fall next. The king read aloud. "On the 19th day of February 1834, a daughter was born to Lady Eveline of Lorraine. The child is named Claire Elizabeth de Lorraine." The room erupted. "She bears the same birth date. Her features, look at her face. This cannot be chance." Claire covered her mouth, overwhelmed. Louis placed a firm hand on her back. "Do not faint. Stay with me." The king raised a hand. "Quiet." The chamber obeyed instantly. He continued reading. "This child, for reasons of political threat, shall be kept away from public record until the danger is resolved. Only the physician and the caretaker assigned to Lady Eveline shall know the truth." Claire whispered, "My mother, she never spoke of my father, or her past." Amélie rose slowly to her feet, tears gathering in her eyes. "Claire, it is you." "I knew it." Claire backed away instinctively. "No, no, this is too much. I am just a villager." "You were hidden," Amélie insisted. "Not by choice, by necessity." Louis stepped forward, voice firm. "Your Majesty, before any conclusion is reached, we must verify. Claire herself recalls nothing of this." The king nodded. "Indeed, verification is crucial." But Renaud interjected sharply. "Sire, there is more. The document includes the caretaker's name." The king checked the page. "It does." Louis's breath caught. "Who was named?" The king looked up. "Marie Dubois." Claire froze. "My mother," she whispered. "Her name—" "It is her name." Louis steadied her again as she swayed. "Claire, look at me, breathe." But Renaud pressed forward. "Sire, if this record is genuine, and it appears to be, then Miss Dubois is not a simple villager. She is a noble heir, the last surviving member of her line." Amélie reached for Claire's hand. Claire pulled back instinctively. Please. I do not know how to be this person. You already are, Amélie said gently. You always were. Louis stepped between them, his tone protective. Enough, she needs time. But the king's attention shifted suddenly, sharply. He raised the folio, examining the final lines. His expression changed, confusion, then doubt. No, he murmured. This cannot be right. The council members leaned forward. What does it say, sire? Is the record incomplete? Has it been tampered with? The king hesitated, reading the text again. Claire whispered, Your Majesty? He looked up at her with furrowed brows. The last lines state that the child survived the fire. The chamber held its breath. Louis murmured, So far, everything aligns. The king continued, But it also states she was taken from the ruins by a man named Armand Léon and delivered to a safe location. Claire frowned. Armand who? There is more, the king said quietly. The document ends abruptly, as if interrupted. The caretaker's name, Marie Dubois, appears only as a secondary possibility, not as the one who confirmed the survival. Louis stiffened. Meaning? Renaud finished the thought in a chilling tone. Meaning the child placed in the village may not be the Lorraine heir at all. Claire's vision blurred. I do not understand. Amélie gasped. No, this must be wrong. She looks exactly like... The king interrupted. Resemblance is not proof. Louis clenched his teeth. Nor is a half-finished document proof of anything. The nobles erupted again, louder than before. So she may be the heir, or she may have been switched. Is she an impostor without knowing it? If not Marie Dubois, then who raised the true child? Claire felt her stomach drop. Please stop talking about me as if I am not here. Louis turned toward her at once. Claire, look at me. None of this defines you. But Claire's gaze drifted toward the king. What would you have me do, Your Majesty? He studied her with heavy eyes. Until the truth is confirmed, you cannot be declared heir. Claire felt a measure of relief, until he continued. But neither can we dismiss the possibility. A murmur ran through the room. Louis stepped closer to her. Sire, she cannot endure this interrogation any longer. The king nodded reluctantly. You are right. He turned to Claire. We will not settle this tonight. Renaud bowed stiffly. Then we reconvene after the wedding? No, the king said firmly. We reconvene before the wedding. The room went still. Louis snapped, Sire, that is unreasonable. But the king raised a hand. It is necessary. A royal wedding cannot proceed while a disputed heir stands unacknowledged among the guests. Claire's voice cracked. I do not wish to interfere with your family. But you already have, Renaud said coldly. Louis rounded on him. Watch your tongue. Renaud remained unfazed. Then she must be examined, questioned fully. The council must judge whether she is the rightful child or an unintentional impostor. Claire's breath came fast. An impostor? The king sighed heavily. No one accuses you of deception, but we must know the truth. Louis placed himself protectively in front of her. You will not subject her to humiliation, Renaud replied. This is not humiliation. This is justice. A sharp tension filled the room. The king rubbed his forehead. Enough, both of you. He turned to Claire. Miss Dubois, Claire, rest now. Tomorrow morning before the ceremony, the council will question you again. We will speak with the princess as well. And perhaps we will finally understand what role you were meant to play in this world. Claire opened her mouth to protest, but no sound came. Louis wrapped his arm securely around her, guiding her out of the chamber. Nobles whispered frantically as they passed. Some looked startled, others suspicious, others fearful. Claire heard scraps of phrases. Not the heir, or the wrong heir. Then where is the true child? Louis kept walking, shielding her from the worst of the stares. When they finally reached the quieter corridor, Claire stopped abruptly. Louis, she whispered, if I am not the heir, then who am I? He turned toward her, eyes fierce with emotion. You are Claire. That is all that matters. But Claire shook her head. To you, perhaps. But to them, I am a question they intend to answer. Louis held her gaze. Then we face it together. Before Claire could respond, a figure stepped out from the shadows behind a column. Lady Mirelle. Her smile was thin. My dear Claire, do you not see? The truth is already unraveling. And tomorrow's the council will finish what the princess so recklessly began. Claire's breath caught. Morel stepped closer, lowering her voice to a whisper sharpened by triumph. By sunrise, every noble in France will know exactly who you are, or who you are not. Claire barely slept. The night pressed on her with an oppressive stillness, as though even time hesitated to move forward. She sat by the window in her chamber, wrapped in a blanket the maid had left, staring at the gardens washed by pale dawn light. Each breath felt fragile, each thought even more so. She heard Louis knock softly before he entered. He paused when he saw her sitting upright, fully dressed despite the early hour. "You did not rest," he said quietly. She looked toward him, exhaustion heavy in her eyes. "How could I?" Louis closed the door behind him. He approached slowly, as though afraid she might shatter if he moved too quickly. "Claire, whatever the council demands today, I will not allow them to harm you." "They do not need to harm me," she whispered. "Their questions alone take everything apart." Louis sat across from her. "Then we will face their questions together. Nothing will happen without my presence." She lowered her gaze. "I am glad you will be there." For a few heartbeats, neither spoke. The quiet between them felt tender, almost fragile. It was the first calm she had felt since arriving at the castle. Claire finally broke the silence. "Louis, if the council decides I am not the child they believe, will they let me leave in peace?" "Yes," Louis answered, but his voice held something unspoken. "And if they decide I am?" she whispered. He leaned forward. "Then they must also recognize that you have lived 20 years without privilege or protection. They cannot force you into a role you do not choose." Claire shook her head. "But could I choose it? I do not know how to be anyone other than myself. I could never fit into their world." Louis's expression softened. "You do not need to fit. You only need to live." Her voice trembled. "I only ever wanted enough money to help my family. Nothing else." Louis reached out, hesitated, then took her hand gently. "Claire, you are not responsible for what others kept from you. You are not responsible for the fears or ambitions of nobles who want to shape your identity to suit their needs." Claire exhaled slowly. "Then why do I feel responsible anyway?" He squeezed her hand lightly. "Because you have a good heart. That is the part they cannot ever take away." A knock sounded at the door. The king's guard stepped inside. "Miss Dubois, His Majesty requests your presence in the council chamber." Louis stood immediately. "Then she is not going anywhere without me." The guard nodded. His Majesty expected as much. Claire rose and Louis offered his arm. "Ready?" "No," she admitted. "But I will go." He gave her a faint smile. "Courage does not ask whether we are ready." They walked together through the dim corridor. Servants paused to watch them pass, their expressions softer than the noble stares of yesterday. Word had spread, but with it came a shift in tone. Where previously there had been suspicion, now there was uncertainty, and perhaps sympathy. As they approached the council chamber, Claire felt her breath shorten. The double doors stood open, revealing the assembled nobles. Princess Amélie was already there, standing near her fiancé, her face pale and solemn. The king sat at the head of the table, the freshly discovered document beside him. When Claire entered, the king gestured gently. "Miss Dubois, please sit." She obeyed. Louis took the seat beside her. Renaud stood across the table, his posture rigid. The king began. "Today we will conclude this matter. We must ensure the wedding proceeds without unresolved questions, but above all we must treat you, Miss Dubois, with respect." Claire nodded, surprised by the kindness in his tone. Renaud cleared his throat. "We shall begin." The questions came, but they were different from the interrogation of the day before. Calmer, more measured. Claire answered as best as she could. "Where were you raised? Who cared for you? Did Marie Dubois ever speak of receiving you from another family? Did any unusual visitors come to your home? Did you possess anything from the early years other than the wedding ribbon?" Claire answered honestly each time. "No. I do not know. Never. No one. Nothing." Louis watched the council members closely, guarding every word she spoke. After nearly an hour, the king leaned back. "We have heard enough." Claire felt her heart thud painfully. The king clasped his hands together. "The truth is this. The evidence is insufficient to confirm you as the missing Lorraine heir. The broken document provides more confusion than clarity, and you yourself retain no memory or possession that proves such lineage. Claire's breath left her in a long exhalation, part relief, part pain. The king continued, "But neither can we entirely dismiss the possibility. Therefore, we must accept that uncertainty exists." Renaud stepped forward. "Then the council recommends that Miss Dubois remain under observation until—" "No," the king said firmly. "The council's recommendation is unnecessary." Renaud stiffened. "Sire!" The king raised his voice, silencing him. "Miss Dubois is free. She may remain here as a guest or depart as she wishes. We will not pursue further investigation unless she requests it." Claire blinked. I may leave?" "Yes," the king said, "if that is what you desire." Claire felt the knot in her stomach loosen for the first time in days. She looked at Louis. He gave the faintest nod of approval. Amélie rose suddenly. "Father, she must remain under protection. If someone placed her in hiding, it means someone once wished her harm." Louis turned sharply. "Princess Amélie, Claire is not a symbol. She does not need a guard at every door." Claire breathed in carefully. "Your Highness, I appreciate your concern, truly. But I want peace, not protection, not titles, not speculation." Amélie's eyes softened. "Then I will honor that, and I apologize for the pain my certainty caused. I meant only to save what I believed was family." Claire spoke gently. "I know." The king stood, bringing the session to a close. "Then this matter ends here. The wedding will proceed without disruption. Miss Dubois, you are welcome to attend if you wish." Claire offered a respectful nod. "Thank you, Your Majesty." When the nobles began to disperse, Louis turned to Claire. "Are you all right?" She let out a shaky breath. "Yes, I think, yes." They walked together through the now bright corridor. For the first time since her arrival, her steps felt lighter. Claire finally spoke. "Louis, thank you for everything." "You do not need to thank me." "I do," she insisted. "You stood for me again and again. You did not let them tear me apart." Louis met her gaze. "You think I could have done otherwise?" Claire smiled faintly. "Most would have." He shook his head. "Not I," then added softly, "Not for you." She felt warmth bloom in her chest, soft and undeniable. They reached a terrace overlooking the gardens. Claire stopped, touching the cold stone railing. "I came here for enough money to help my family. I never expected my entire world to change." Louis moved beside her. "It has not changed your heart, and that is what matters." Claire turned to face him fully. "What happens now?" Louis looked at her with a sincerity she had never seen in any noble gaze. "Now, you choose. Not the council, not the princess, not any lineage they try to impose upon you." He stepped closer, just enough for her to feel the safety in his presence. "You choose what life you want, and whom you want in it." Claire's breath trembled. "And you?" Louis held her gaze. "I remain here, if you wish me to." Her voice softened. "I do wish it." He smiled. A real smile, unguarded for once. "Then whatever comes next, we face it together." For the first time since arriving at the castle, Claire felt a sense of calm that reached all the way to her bones. The storm had finally passed. The questions had quieted. The shadows of the past had loosened their grip. What remained was possibility, and her heart already knew which direction it longed to go. She looked out at the winter gardens and breathed freely at last, ready to step toward the future that waited just beyond the next door. The castle shifted from tension to celebration with surprising speed. Musicians warmed their instruments in the chapel, servants rushed through halls with fresh linens, and bouquets were carried past Claire like floating clouds. Yet the noise felt far away. After the council released her, she had retreated briefly to her chamber, needing a moment to steady her heart. When Louis knocked again, she opened the door before he could speak. "You came," she said softly. "I told you I would not leave you alone today," he answered. He studied her quietly as though confirming she was truly all right. She had changed into a simple gown the maid had chosen, a soft shade that suited her without effort. It was nothing like the gowns worn by nobles, but on Claire it looked graceful, honest and deeply her. Louis offered his arm. "Walk with me. The ceremony will begin soon, and there is something I wish to say before it does." Claire placed her hand on his arm, letting him guide her through the corridor. Her pulse fluttered, not from nerves now, but from the warmth of his presence. They stopped in a small side garden, sheltered by stone arches. The winter air brushed her cheeks, but Lewis's closeness steadied the chill. He turned toward her, his expression serious but gentle. "Claire, today should have been joyful from the start, yet you have walked through fire not of your making. I admire your strength more than you know." She lowered her gaze. "I did not feel strong." "You were," he said. "You stood tall when most would have crumbled." Her breath trembled, moved by the sincerity in his voice. "Lewis, I could not have endured any of it without you." He smiled faintly. Then we helped each other. For a moment, silence settled around them, warm rather than awkward. Claire felt her heart swell with something she dared not name yet, but Louis took a slow breath as though preparing for something important. "Claire, I brought you here to protect myself from gossip. I believed I needed someone at my side to deflect attention, but after everything, I see how wrong I was." He paused, searching her eyes. "I did not need protection, I needed you." Claire's lips parted, surprise mixing with emotion. "Me?" "Yes," he said softly. "From the moment we met, I saw strength in you, kindness, honesty. You reminded me of the man I want to be. Not a duke shielded by pride, but a man capable of standing for what matters." She felt the world tighten and expand at once. "Louis," he reached for her hand, brushing his thumb lightly against her fingers. "I risk sounding foolish, but I cannot remain silent. Claire, I have come to care for you in a way I never expected. Deeply, entirely." Her breath caught. "Why would that be foolish?" "Because I never wished to impose my feelings upon you," he said. "Especially after what you've endured. I thought perhaps you might want freedom now. Freedom from nobles, from courts, from anyone who tries to shape your life." Claire swallowed softly. "Freedom is precious, but so is being seen." He stepped closer. "And do you feel seen, Claire?" She nodded, her eyes shimmering. "More than ever before. You saw me when no one else bothered to look." Louis exhaled slowly, as though releasing years of restraint. "Then let me ask you plainly, not as a duke, not as a man of rank, but simply as Louis." His voice lowered. "Do I have a place in your future, or must I let you go?" Claire lifted her hand to his cheek before she realized she was doing it. He stilled at her touch. "Louis," she whispered, "you are the only person I want beside me. Not because I feel indebted, not because of fear or uncertainty, but because when I am near you, the world feels safe. And I have never known safety before." His eyes softened with a warmth deeper than any she had seen. "Claire," she stepped closer, "you did not force feelings onto me. You showed me patience, respect, kindness. How could I not care for you?" The words hovered between them, fragile and profound. Louis took her hand fully, pressing it to his chest over his heartbeat. "Then allow me one more question," he said, his voice unsteady for the first time since she had known him. "If your heart is free to choose, will you choose me?" Claire felt tears gather, not of fear, not of sorrow, tears of certainty. "Yes," she whispered, "I choose you." Lewis's eyes closed briefly, relief washing over him like sunlight breaking through cloud. When he opened them again, there was a depth she had never seen before. He leaned closer, slowly, giving her every chance to withdraw. She didn't. Their foreheads touched, breaths mingling softly. Claire felt warmth bloom through her entirely. Louis pulled back only enough to look into her eyes. "May I?" "Yes," she whispered. He kissed her gently, reverently, as though she were something delicate he cherished with his whole heart. Claire leaned into him, her hands rising to his shoulders. The moment carried no urgency, only a profound tenderness that felt like a promise. When they parted, Claire could hardly breathe, but she felt lighter than she ever had in her life. Louis smiled, a rare, unguarded smile that lit his entire face. "We should go to the ceremony. Your presence might cause fewer uproars now." Claire laughed softly. "I hope so." But as they walked together toward the chapel, she noticed something different. The nobles still looked, but their gazes had changed. The whispers no longer carried suspicion. Some held apology, others curiosity. A few even held respect. The king himself approached them near the chapel doors. Miss Dubois, he said with a gentler tone than before, I trust you are recovering from yesterday's strain. I am, Your Majesty, thank you. The king nodded, looking between her and Louis with a perceptive eye. Then enjoy the ceremony. And remember, your future is yours alone to shape. Claire bowed her head. I intend to honor that. The chapel was filled with music and quiet anticipation. Princess Amélie stood near the altar, dressed in wedding silk, radiant despite the strain of the past days. When she saw Claire, her face brightened with relief. She approached quickly, taking Claire's hands. You look calm, she said. I am so glad. Claire smiled lightly. Not entirely calm, but closer than I was. Amélie squeezed her hands. Forgive me again. I let fear guide me to certainty, but I am grateful you will be here to witness this day with me. As a friend, Claire said, not as a symbol of confusion. Amélie's eyes shone warmly. As a friend indeed. Louis approached, offering his arm again. Shall we? The ceremony unfolded beautifully. Music filled the chapel. Vows were exchanged. Tears were shed by noble women who pretended not to cry. Claire watched with a full heart, knowing she was witnessing something sacred, not just Amélie's union, but the restoration of peace within the castle. After the ceremony, the grand hall transformed for celebration. Tables overflowed, music swirled, and laughter filled the once tense air. Claire found herself approached by several nobles, some apologizing, some expressing curiosity with newfound respect. Lady Morel approached last, her expression unexpectedly restrained. Miss Dubois, she said softly. I spoke cruelly before. I misjudged you. Claire looked at her calmly. Yes, you did. Morel lowered her eyes. If you ever decide to remain within noble circles, you will thrive. You have more dignity than most here. Claire considered her words. Thank you, she said simply. When Morel walked away, Louis stepped behind Claire, his voice warm against her ear. Shall we escape to quieter air? She smiled. Yes. They slipped out onto one of the castle's terraces overlooking the gardens. Lanterns glowed softly, and music drifted faintly from inside. Louis took her hands gently. Claire, I would like us to build something together, a life that is ours, free from politics, free from the weight of lineage. Claire stepped closer. What would that life look like? Louis brushed a strand of hair from her cheek. One where I wake each day grateful for the woman beside me. Her breath quickened. And if I wished to stay by your side, then I would ask you for more, he said quietly. I would ask you to be not only my companion, but my partner, my equal, my heart's choice. Claire felt her heart swell until she thought it might overflow. Louis, he dropped to one knee, not formally, not stiffly, but with a sincerity that made her chest tighten. Claire Dubois, will you marry me? Tears rose gently in her eyes. Not from uncertainty, not from fear, but from the profound joy settling into her soul. Yes, she whispered. Yes, Louis, I will. He rose, laughing softly with relief, and embraced her. The world fell away as he kissed her again, still tender, still reverent, but now filled with promise. When they parted, Claire rested her forehead against his. I faced so much these past days, she said softly, and yet the greatest gift I found was you. And I, he murmured, found the woman who taught me what love truly is. The music swelled behind them, but the night belonged to them alone, two souls choosing one another freely, standing in a world that had once tried to define them. Louis held her hand, and together they looked out at the gardens, ready to step into the life that awaited them, no longer shaped by rumor or lineage, but by love. Thank you so much for listening to this story all the way to the end. We hope it moved you as much as it moved us while telling it. We'd love to hear your thoughts. Leave us a comment telling us where you're listening from and what you liked the most. Rate this story from 0 to 10. What score would you give it? If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and leave a like as a show of support. That really motivates us to keep creating and sharing more stories full of emotion and life lessons. And before we go, we want to remind you that an exciting and heartwarming story recommendation will appear on the final screen. If you'd like to enjoy it, just click on the video. Thank you once again for being here, and we'll see you in the next story.